into that in like a group chat, but I am going to explain kind of the history of, how it started and what's currently going on. But let me just begin just by explaining who I am, and then we will move forward from that. So my name is Krista Madison. I am from British Columbia, Canada. So a true Canadian, been here my whole life. It's been a lot different lately, especially with COVID happening. So I understand that the convoy, the reasons behind of why it occurred, but let me just start from the beginning. So basically when COVID hit, I know America's a little bit different. I mean, everywhere around the world is different. Australia was really bad. England was bad. I mean, I understand everywhere has its issues. We started off with having kind of like a full lockdown. We all kind of lost our jobs for, I'd say not like everybody, but the majority of people. A lot of people had to work from homes at the beginning of COVID. It started off with basically all of us, like in BC, we were all laid off. I ended up finding a group of friends and they introduced me to online trading with the financial markets and crypto, and they opened my eyes to like a pretty cool, exciting way of living, not worrying that like my job is going to be taken away. Like who would ever know that a pandemic would ever occur in our lifetime? So I was pretty blessed to have met everybody from here. So basically what ended up happening is we all thought that everything was going to go back to normal. It kind of went up and down. We had our government say 1 minute, you guys have to get vaccinated and life is going to be so much better for you guys if you just do. Everything will be open to just, the vaccinated. So everybody ran out and got vaccinated. And then all of a sudden they shut everything down again. And they said, basically, I don't care if you're vaccinated or not, we're shutting everything down. You're not allowed to go to restaurants unless you're fully vaccinated. You have these stupid passports. You can't go into theaters now. So it was kind of a lot of people were pretty angry about that whole situation about the passports, but they still ran out and got it because obviously without that, you don't have freedom. So lots of healthcare workers got removed, obviously, from their jobs. That was quite sad, actually. All these people actually, you look at the healthcare industry, they were the ones that got us to where we are today. They have been through so much at the beginning of the COVID. Like I can't even imagine actually firing these people during COVID. They were there for all of us. They went through hard hours. I mean, I have so many nurses that have so many stories. They're out of job now. So that started off. And then you also look at the truckers. You remember when we were out of toilet paper? All these truckers were here to run and get us toilet paper. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have food on our shelves in the grocery store. Well, I guess the government, they didn't think that they had enough control. So they decided, you know what? We're going to now make the truckers get the vaccination. So they're going to be pushing the mandates, which is the passport for the vax, on all these truckers. So all the truckers decided to come as a community and go to Ottawa and fight for all of our rights. It is wrong to force somebody to do something like that. It is wrong because not everybody can take a vaccination. So they ended up going there and they were very peaceful. Unfortunately, 3 weeks from then, Trudeau decided to open up an emergency act, which is quite illegal, and enforced thousands of police to fight all these peaceful protesters. So they arrested the top leaders. They arrested hundreds of protesters, and they pepper sprayed many people, got horses, trampled on a bunch of people, and forced everybody to break apart. And now, currently, for some reason, the House of Commons have accepted that this is okay, that the Emergency Act is okay. Well, the Emergency Act is used to fight terrorism. So now our Canadian protesters are now terrorists. And Trudeau did say to everybody that the Emergency Act was going to be placed only for, as long as they needed. So maybe like 3 days. Now I hear that they're going to be prolonging it for indefinitely. We don't know yet. And they're not only taking away our rights to have money in banks, They're freezing people's accounts. They're freezing people's crowdfunding accounts. They're also freezing crypto accounts. So the Bitcoin people, apparently they're going to be shutting that down too. So a lot of things are happening in Canada, and it's been taking a toll on a lot of people's mental health. And that's why we're just going to discuss it, because I'm curious about other people's opinions on it. It's a pretty scary time, so it's nice to actually have a group of girls that are pretty intellectual to come together and talk about it. So, hey guys, who wants to talk next?
Hey, Krista, thanks for opening up the call. Can everyone just type a 111 in the chat for Krista? Because I haven't known her for very long, but I do know that public speaking or speaking in front of other people has made her very nervous, but you wouldn't even think so listening to her speak and opening up this call for everyone. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Krista, again. And for everyone who doesn't know me, my name is Shauna Hogan. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm 35 years young, and I want to be very clear for everyone listening here today and joining us. I normally don't talk about political things at all, and I don't pay attention to the news. I have no involvement whatsoever with the convoy, but luckily we do have someone on the call with us today who has been there, and we definitely want to hear from her later. So right now you might be asking yourself, okay, well, why is Shauna even talking about this subject? Well, before I had met my husband, who is Canadian, he's also on the call as well, so we may hear from him. I had nothing to do with Canada, right? But now, since I am married with him, I have a personal connection with his family. We have business partners in Canada, and we have really close friends in Canada. So I have found this event and just the past 2 years in general to be very interesting. Seeing what has made the differences living in our countries and the laws and regulations in the US versus Canada. And I'm here in Dallas, Texas. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but I have traveled to Canada a couple times. And so I've gotten to know the people a little bit more, the country a little bit more, and have traveled even very recently during COVID and before COVID. So I kind of knew the before and after. And so it's very interesting that the US hides certain news events from the people, right? And we have heard nothing about the Freedom Convoy here, except for Fox News. They're great, so you can, tune into that. They have a good laugh about everything. But I have been following the Freedom Convoy on IG. You can follow them at Freedom Convoy 2022. So we can drop that in the chat. I have no association with this profile, but they do a really good job filming live footage from regular individuals just like me and you. You're not getting the narrative from the news. You're not getting scripted speeches from the government. You're getting information from one of the most powerful devices that we have available to us, and that's our cell phones, right? We want to talk about getting our power back. Okay, that's a huge topic we're going to talk about tonight, and this is going to be an open discussion. I just kind of want to set the tone for the call, and it's important to understand that we just need to become fundamentally aware that we are powerful. Earlier, I was listening to the very famous audio by Earl Nightingale called "The Strangest Secret." I didn't know that was a tongue twister until just now, but how many of you know about The Strangest Secret? Okay, it's available on YouTube. I know some of you on here have listened to it. And he mentions a book called Man's Search for Himself. He says that the opposite of courage in this society is not cowardice, it's conformity. Conformity. If you don't know what conformity is, it's people acting like everybody else. It's not knowing where they're going or why they're doing it. It's just people believing that their lives revolve around everything that's happening to them. Okay. And so this is important because if you're anything like me, you want to experience a world full of happiness, full of joy, full of peace, full of abundance. And you want to see a world that's more united. Okay. So this is important to understand because whatever you focus on grows. And in my opinion, this is one of the most greatest events that has happened in our lifetimes. What's been happening the past 3 weeks in Canada. And this is the most peaceful protest I've ever witnessed. Despite the multiple threats from the government, labeling them as racist. You know, for those who don't know, they were seizing their assets, the trucks, freezing bank accounts, like Krista had mentioned. And, you know, there's video footage online of the police trampling innocent individuals with the horses. And so, you know, this is also 3 weeks of people standing outside in freezing cold weather. You will not see that here, okay? Only in Canada. People are standing outside for weeks in freezing cold weather. So this is modern day warfare, in my opinion. You know, it's individuals who have stood up and taken control in their own hands to stand up for freedom. And this is freedom of choice. Okay. So also, I just found out we have round 2, the People's Convoy, which just launched today. You can find out more information about that at thepeoplesconvoy.org. So it's happening here in the US now. The truckers are going to DC. And so, yeah, I want to just open this up for discussion, but also I really would like to hear a personal experience, an introduction from someone who I have been following on Instagram. She's very outspoken. She's a mom, and she's a very confident individual who she inspires me. And her name is Miss Northeast. If she wants to disclose her real name on here, feel free, but you know, you're safe on this call. So, you know, feel free to give a short introduction of who you are and your personal experience of these past few weeks. Miss Northeast. Oh, I think you're muted.
Technical difficulties. How's that? All right. My name is Kim McCarthy. I live in Ontario. I'm about 5 hours from Ottawa. I was not actually with the convoy in Ottawa. However, I knew a lot of people who were and would actually some of my neighbors were, and they would relay, of course, all the information back to me to help spread the word. Yeah, the last 3 weeks, the last 2 years, what we've all gone through in Canada and the States, it has been psychological warfare. Do you guys have any questions for me? Interesting, very up-to-date news. As of 5 o'clock today, Trudeau dropped the Emergency Act. So what was happening was the Senate, who is, I don't know how much you guys know about our government. We have a Senate that sits above the government. And basically they get to vote and say whether they feel like the government is being fair or not. So they were voting and debating on whether Trudeau had overstepped with the Emergency Measures Act. And while that was going on, it was quite clear that he was going to lose and that they were going to vote against him. So instead of taking the loss, he actually announced before they adjourned and before they were able to vote that he was going to drop it. So as of 5 o'clock today, it has been dropped. Now, there's still a lot of questions to be asked because it has been invoked for, I think, 3 days. So the whole purpose when he invoked it was he was trying to make a lot of those war powers that are only available during the Emergency Measures Act. He was trying to make those powers permanent. like the ability to seize your bank accounts, the ability to take assets. He was trying to make protest illegal, basically. Like if the government didn't agree with what you were protesting against, then they could deem you, a racist, a misogynist, neo-Nazi, whatever their term was that they wanted to call you. And they could send the police onto you and call you illegal. Whether he got to pass any of those in the last couple of days, that's what I'm waiting to find out. But that is what has just happened in Canada as of 2 hours ago, my time. Does anybody have, like, is there any kind of, like, what exactly, I guess I'm trying to find out how much you guys know. What is it you'd like to know about the convoy? I know some of you have followed me, some of you are following the convoy. Do you guys have any
actually, a lot of people haven't even heard about it at all. Like people
really?
on this call,
Okay.
Yeah. So feel free to share however much you've experienced yourself. Great.
So basically, the convoy came together, just like you guys in the States. Here, our federal government, whether it has lifted or not, as of right now, I don't know. But I'm an unvaxxed Canadian. I have no trouble sharing that. I know it's private knowledge. I don't have to share that. But being unvaccinated in Canada, I actually can't leave the country. I'm a prisoner of my own country because I can't leave. So there were a lot of really unjust laws like that came into effect with these mandates. Our supply chain was really affected, as was yours in the US. Nurses, teachers, people that were considered frontline workers over the last year and a half that were heroes 1 minute, which you guys have experienced in the US as well, were being fired the next minute. Firemen. I know police officers that were let go because they wouldn't take the jab. So the truckers knew in November of 2021 that they were going to be mandated. It actually came in November, and the deadline was in January. So the way I have heard it is they got together and they organized this protest because they weren't going to do it. And what so many people think is that it was an unvaccinated protest. And what people don't know is Canada has probably one of the highest vaccination rates in the world for COVID. So the majority of the people at the protest were actually vaccinated, some of them double, triple. A lot of the narrative that you're hearing, the pure gaslighting that our government and that our media, along with, I'm going to make some people mad, I'm going to talk politics, the Democratic media that you guys have there, like CNN and stuff, completely slandered the Canadians and the protesters, calling us all white supremacists, neo-Nazis, racists, whatever verb, that they could come up with, whatever term to slander, and to all the trigger words, right? All the buzzwords. You guys have heard them too in the US, to try and divide Canadians against the convoy. But what actually happened, and what Trudeau and the entire government, the federal government, didn't realize is the more and more hate that they put onto the citizens, the more it actually brought us together. And I don't know how much you guys have gotten to see through the US, but what happened here in Canada was the most patriotic, the most loving, the most unity I think I have ever seen in the entire country. Tens of thousands of people from all across Canada came out to the highways as the convoy came by to go to Ottawa. Like, there's never been so much unity and love. And what I am so proud of with Canada is that vibration, that unity, that love. The epicenter is Canada, and it rocked the world. It opened so many people's eyes in the world to the tyrannical governments that have been punishing quite unjustly and unfairly all around the world, and what they have been doing to their citizens. Governments need to understand they work for the people. The people don't work for them. And our governments in the US too have forgotten that. And so what the protesters did, and they were never violent, not once. So if you think of protests throughout the US or even Canada, a lot of times, you look at BLM, you look at some others, they got quite violent. There were murders and everything involved in them. The protesters in Ottawa cleaned the streets. The crime was low, like the crime was the lowest it had ever been. There were bouncy castles and barbecues, and they set up hot tubs. It was like the biggest, you guys do it in football. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like tailgating. It was like the biggest tailgate party, if I could compare it to that in the US, that you have ever seen. It was families with their kids and their dogs, and they were there for freedom and unity. There were people of all colors, all backgrounds, all religions, immigrants, refugees, like people, everybody was there. So to say it was a white supremacist movement, the Sikh community has their own Sikh Convoy page. Like everybody came as Canadians, as one. We weren't separate people anymore. We didn't take the race baiting. We didn't take the division anymore. Everybody could see what was happening. And we all came together as one people, as Canadians. And we said, no, we're not going to take this anymore. And not one snowball was even thrown. And that's what I want people to kind of really get into their heads. There was zero violence. These protesters, when Justin Trudeau wouldn't even speak to them, by the way, he took a knee with the BLM. I don't know, again, how much you guys know about Canadian politics. Justin Trudeau actually gave an actual terrorist $10 million a couple of years ago of Canadian taxpayer money. Like, that was okay. He could talk to him, but he wouldn't talk to a bunch of Canadian citizens who were upset with their government and instead labeled us as terrorists. So a simple discussion and a conversation would have ended everything 3 weeks ago, but he refused to do it. He even hid away. I'm sure you guys all saw the memes and the jokes of him hiding. And so that happened. And what Trudeau did then, we went from a small fringe minority to I need emergency war powers to deal with this, was the biggest joke going on here. Because he was trying to label this movement as not only anti-Canadian, he was trying to label it as very small by calling it fringe. So, I don't know if you guys have seen the hashtags, we the fringe, and people did up t-shirts and everything, proud member of a small fringe minority. It was the majority of Canadian citizens who can see clearly now that the government is completely out of hand here. They're completely tyrannical. They want a dictatorship, not a democracy. I believe the US is a republic. Do I have that correct? I don't know if somebody wants to chime in here, but we are a democracy. And yeah, so he wouldn't even have a conversation. So he enacted the war powers. You got to understand these protesters who, like I said, didn't even throw a snowball, who were on their knees speaking the Lord's Prayer and would sing these officers, by the way, who a lot of them had no name tags and no badge numbers on them. They had no way to even identify them, in riot gear with batons and AR-15s, didn't even throw a snowball. These protesters were tear gassed. They were hit with rubber bullets. Trudeau did that to peaceful Canadian citizens. He did that to his own citizens by sending the police on them. You guys saw what happened with the horses, and the Indigenous woman who was on her mobility scooter. And then the lies that came out of that, where they tried to say that someone threw a bicycle at the horse's feet to try to hurt the horse. It was a mobility scooter, and the cops actually ran her over with the horse. She's going to be okay, by the way. Her name is Candy, and she's going to be okay. So keep in mind, faced with all of that, these protesters sang these officers, "Oh Canada." They sang the national anthem to them. And all the violence that Trudeau and our federal government wanted from those protesters, none of them gave it to them. It was the most unified movement I've ever seen in my life. And I'm so proud and grateful to be alive to see it, and to, in some small way, through my social media page, be able to share it with the world and be a part of it. Does anybody have?
Yeah, I just want to touch on it because this is a discussion, right? So we should all be just kind of like chiming in. I'm from America. I'm from New York, actually, and the United States is a democracy.
Okay.
But I think as Americans, we take our freedoms for granted, and seeing what's going on in these other countries like Australia and Canada now, for instance. I mean, I was listening to something that Shauna had actually sent me, CNN, and they were just saying like the crazy, we look at Canada as like just a colder America, like it's just up there. And we don't realize how different it really, really is and what freedoms we really do take for granted. Just to be open and transparent here, I used to be the person watching my local news channel. I have to tell you, for the last 2 years, or let me backtrack, about a year and a half, I have not turned on the news once. I will not play it in my home. I will not allow it. It's just negativity that I will not allow into my space. The only thing that it doesn't help me with is being up to date unless I hear things from other people, which, to be honest, I'm okay with. I did do a little research. I'm not too familiar with Canadian law, but I know you guys do have a constitution as well as we do. And it's a basic right to have freedom of expression, right? So what the governments are doing, and I think we're all getting used to, we shouldn't be, but I think we're all, maybe that's not the right thing I should say, we're all starting to realize the true manipulation here.
Yes, the gaslighting.
Yes. So not only in Canada, but in America too.
100%.
Yeah, no, continue. You can go.
No, I was going to say 100%. And if anything, what I've been trying to do with my social media page is like a warning to America. It's what happens here in Canada affects you. We're each other's biggest trade partner. If like what's happened, even though Trudeau has now reversed the Emergency Measures Act, that's not enough, right? Because that entire federal government, as far as I'm concerned, needs to be held accountable for what they did to the Canadian citizens over the last 2 years, and in particularly what they did to them over the last 3 weeks. Trudeau has said in multiple interviews how much he admires China and the Chinese Communist Party. What a lot of Americans don't know is we have actually had Chinese Communist Party military running military drills in the wintertime here.
Wow.
And it was unbeknownst to a lot of Canadians as well. It was kept very quiet. We've had Chinese Communist Party scientists who are allowed into level 4 labs here that American and Canadian scientists can't get into.
How scary.
So I want you guys to think about what is happening here. Sorry, my kids I got 3 little kids.
This is real life.
Under control. It's all real life, right? Yeah. So I'm distracted now. So if you think about that, if Trudeau continues with this dictatorship that he is still trying to push through, and he is not voted out and he is not held accountable, you guys literally have somebody who wants to be an ally with China sitting geographically right on top of you guys. All of a sudden, you guys don't have water anymore to keep China and everything away. Literally, they could be right on top of you.
It's a scary thing.
Yeah, it's really scary. And what has happened here in Canada, they do want to, there is talk about the social credit system, the same one that they have in China. They're talking about it in the US too. I know you said you don't like watching the news, and I don't like watching our news either. Like, it makes me want to throw up in my mouth when I watch it. It's the most painful thing that I could do. But I also need to know what everybody is saying on all sides of the spectrum, so that then I can make my best critical thought, right, as to what is truly happening and what is going on.
Absolutely. And respect that 100%. It does make me, not to cut you off, but I mean, just to give yourself that chance of having your own opinion. I mean, I just tuned it out because I'm very spiritual, and I really truly believe everything I allow into these ears affects me, and it does. But we also do have to be aware, and I think a big point of this call is to create awareness, right? So you can continue. I know you were still speaking and I kind of cut you off.
No, it's okay. It's just there's like so much,
Yeah,
right? And I know you guys don't have me for that long, and I'm just trying to give you as much as I possibly can. Yeah. So we talked about the Chinese Communist Party. They were locking down bank accounts here, and what you guys might not know about over in China, in a lot of parts of China, if you do something that the government doesn't like, they can lock down your bank accounts, which is exactly like what our government did here with the protesters. And they were trying to make that power permanent here in Canada. So I want you to think about that. Even if you're somebody who agreed with the mandates and agreed everybody should be like, no matter what your stance is, at some point, you're going to not agree with what the government does.
Mhm.
So if our things are being frozen and we're being called illegal and we're not allowed to protest, well, what's to stop the government from stopping you or anybody else when you have a problem that you don't agree with from protesting or from freezing your bank accounts?
And I think we could go really deep down the rabbit hole with this one. And I really don't want to take it there. But absolutely. I mean, it's been, even just to touch on it lightly, with our last election. You know, I know a lot of people may not have been happy and everyone has their own opinion with President Trump, but, you know, in my opinion, he did a lot of good. And a lot of people don't understand the background of what goes on in our governments. And there's a lot of puppetry and manipulation, as we've all seen throughout the last 2 years. I mean, it's okay to, you know, be 6 feet apart from someone, or like you can wear a mask on the plane, but you don't have to wear it in the airport, or like you don't have to, like, just so many different things. It's like, we're questioning our intelligence at this point as a human race. And it's like, we have to at one point stand up for ourselves. Like, I am not a dummy. As I'm sure, you know, most of us are not. I know the women and some men on this call, we are not dummies. So just understanding like basic human rights and basic, you know, health, it just, things aren't clicking, things aren't making sense. And I really don't want to go into like COVID and that whole thing, but just going back to human rights, right? It's like, where do we draw the line as a society? Like, we're not going to take this anymore, and we're going to stand up because we're not dummies. We are intelligent. I mean, some more than others. But, you know, we have to take a stand. And it's really upsetting to see how hardworking individuals are being scrutinized for a peaceful protest. And I think that's what we need to stay locked in on, is that basic human rights are being taken away for peaceful protests, a basic constitutional right in both of our countries. Freedom of expression, freedom of free speech, protest. We're allowed to do these things, and we're being taken advantage of.
We also want to talk about, like, you know, where do we go from here? You know, like now, since everyone's kind of caught up to speed and like they're more aware of what's happening. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kim, as far as like getting everyone on the same page. But also we want to, you know, offer a solution, because this topic actually just came up in the first place when some of us got together on Sunday, and just, you know, we all kind of felt that emotion, and having people around us who are also, you know, they're watching the news, they're getting this information. And so how do we not allow these outside circumstances to control our lives?
I definitely wanted to ask a question before you kind of went into it. I want to know from like your personal perspective as well, since obviously you're experiencing at another level than all of us. What do you believe is going to happen next? And kind of just again what Shauna had touched base on right now is like, where can we go from here? I'd love to hear your input on it. And I just want to say thank you for your time and taking notes on everything you're telling me.
Oh, well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here and to be able to talk with all of you. You know, I'm very flattered that you wanted me on your call. you guys want to fix the system, all of you, every single person, like people have to get involved, and people are you, people are me, every single person on this call. I know a lot of people say, oh, I don't like politics and I don't want to get political. It's every single Canadian American citizen's job, because the government works for us, to be involved in our politics. And I think a lot of the reason why both our countries are where they are right now is because citizens have been very apathetic. They have been lazy in their duty to manage the government. And that's why our governments have gotten away with as much as what they have gotten away with. With regards to what you can do, I don't think you guys are masked in Texas. But what I've been telling people to do for almost 2 years is don't wait for permission to take your freedom back. I have been tossed out of stores with my 2-year-old daughter on my hip.
Our
Yeah,
mask mandate in New York just ended, not to cut you off, last week. And the entire time, I have never worn a mask in a store. And I have been told to leave. I've been told, and I've stuck up for myself, and I have said I don't need to, you know, the whole thing.
mm-hmm.
And nobody was watching, but it felt good to me. And I think if more of us did that, like you're saying, came together, community, unity, and I think that's a big theme of the last year too, is coming together, right? As a society, as a whole, as a universe, as the you know, this planet. We really need to learn to come together and build relationships and create unity on what we all believe in, because a lot of us are just fear-based, and we need to be more faith-based.
Yes, yeah, and that's the whole point of the government and what they have done. Their entire campaigns in both our countries around the world, they're driven on fear. There's no data, there's no facts. I mean, we all know that now. We've all watched the CDC flip-flop and Fauci and everything else. Like, they have no idea what they're talking about because it's all made up. It's all fiction. So it's all based on fear. And when we are afraid, we're easily, my kids are here, by the way, if you can.
Don't worry about it, Mama. You're good.
It's all fear-based. And when you are afraid, you are the easiest to control and to manipulate. And that is why they do what they do. And that's why they want to make you as afraid as possible. So yeah, lean into your faith, take care of yourself, you know, get off this demon box, like I call it sometimes, and go and actually have conversations with your friends. Go in person if you can. Like, do normal things to try and keep yourself grounded and sane, because this is far from over. This, as far as I'm concerned, is just beginning. So do what you can to raise your vibration, to spread as much love into the world as what you possibly can. I know that sounds really cheesy to a lot of people, but this entire movement.
We're big on that here.
Okay, good. Like, this entire movement here in Canada was fueled by love. Like, and that's what the world felt. It was like the biggest love movement the world has ever seen. It was based off of love for the people's families, for their kids, for freedom, for their countries, or, you know, like, that's what it was based from. And that's why it was as powerful as what it was and what it continues to be.
What really concerns me about, sorry, I got to cut you off for a sec. What really concerns me though is that specifically me, I'm sitting on my ass and all these people are fighting for our freedoms. And then I see things like our top leaders getting arrested. And, like, for example, Tamara Litch, I mean, right now she got denied bail. Like, the judge actually said, I don't feel comfortable releasing you in society because I don't think you're going to not reoffend. What the heck is she doing to offend anybody? Like, what is she, robbing a bank now? So you're telling me that pedophiles are getting on bail, but a peaceful protester is denied bail? That's hard to swallow. That's very hard to swallow.
Yeah, and they're all things that need to be addressed, of course, moving forward. And hopefully this is a step in the right direction.
I just hope that the society starts to wake up, because I deal with clients every day. And unfortunately, it's a very liberal type of society. I'm not saying every single person there is. I mean, a lot of people just rip off their mask and I'm like, yay, I don't care. It's great.
Doesn't that feel good?
Wear it for 8 hours. It's amazing. I love telling people, just take it off. I'm not allowed
Yeah.
because I'll get thrown out of work, but I don't care
yeah.
about letting them do that. And obviously I support my customers, but like, you know, a lot of customers will come in and I have to actually hear them talking while I'm actually serving them. They're like, yeah, so they're just a bunch of hicks and bunch of whiny little white men just trying to preach. And it's like, you know, trying to not do a really bad job on their hair is really, really hard. I'm a hairdresser,
Try not to
so
like miss the razor or something. Yeah.
it's like, oops, sorry. Yeah, it's one of those things. I deal with it every day. And I get a lot of
Yeah.
a mixed bag. I get the good, and then I get the people that are like feeding into the whole like the news that everyone keeps saying, oh, it's just, oh, they're just, you know, they're assaulting police. Like, are you serious? They're gonna assault the police? Sure.
Yeah.
That's
It's
difficult.
uncomfortable conversations, right? I know
Yeah.
that's harder with you to have with your clients because of course you don't want to lose your job, but it's
sure.
uncomfortable conversations that we can have with our family and with our friends and with other people in our community. Like when we hear the false narrative or like we hear them, like you may not win, like it's not about winning. But you might plant like a seed in their head, right? That makes them think, that makes them question. And then maybe they'll actually go and look into something for themselves. And I used to be really, really mad at people when I saw them with their masks on or to continue to complying. And it still does frustrate me because, and those of you who followed me, I've done lots of rants on this. If we all just not complied, if we all just had taken our mask off like a year ago and just stopped with all this nonsense when it was quite clear and obvious that it was all just garbage, all those protesters wouldn't have had to be in Ottawa. We wouldn't be where we are now. We wouldn't have had the emergency acts invoked it. Our kids would have been unmasked, you know, a year and a half ago if we'd all just, like I said, as citizens, and I'm included, right? We all got to do our part. Taken our masks off, not complied,
And I think
just
it comes
gone about
down
living our lives.
to an education issue. And a lot of us are uneducated, and there's a lot of ignorance and naivety in this, in my country at least. Most people, I see people driving in their cars with masks on alone. Like,
Here too.
Yeah.
okay, and like I saw someone today, and I was literally driving, and I was getting back from getting my hair done, and I looked to my right, and I felt bad for him because
Yes.
he's uneducated. And I think this is a bigger issue than just we need to come together and we need to unmask. I think we need to promote education and getting yourself aware, not just listening to the news and listening to who you think is supposed to be telling you the truth or listening to your friends and your family, but really doing the research on your own and educating yourself and becoming a stronger minded individual. That'll create a stronger minded unity, community, and society.
100%. Taking responsibility and accountability for ourselves, for our education, for our own health and well-being. It's not somebody else's job to look after your health or my health or anybody else's. That's on us as an individual. And just like I said with the politics, it's on us as individuals to educate ourselves, to read the platforms ourselves, to go to these websites that have, our political platforms, to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
That's on every single one of us as citizens, not just to take what we're fed by the mainstream media, by the legacy media, to dive deeper than that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I would love to hear from, we have more Canadians on the call and they're not speaking up, and I would love to hear from them.
Absolutely.
I'll go next. Well, I was born and raised in Canada, and I literally came here to Texas November. So 2 days right before they were gonna impose vaccinations to enter Canadian airports or to fly. I was able to fly out here 2 days before, but there's a huge change. So for Canadians that haven't left in the last 2 years, there's a major change in America. Yes, you do need to fly with the mask, but here in Texas, it's like as if COVID does not exist. Yes, there's a few people that walk around with masks and so forth. I believe a little over half is vaccinated here, but there's no conversations. There's no, oh, how has the lockdown been for you for the past 2 years? It's so different. Because like when I talked to Canadian, when I was there, like one of the first things they'll talk to you is like, how's COVID been for you? How has the lockdown been? It's not something there's a difference change here. And part of the biggest challenge that we have with this, with this whole COVID situation is because most people only rely on their information from the news.
Mhm.
And the news is, it's from the government, right? The government, they get sponsors, they get money for their, when they're going up for, getting elected and so forth, and they use these medias, they pay these medias to get their name out there at the end of the day. So they really pretty much can say whatever they want to say. And the challenge is that we've relied on it since we were kids. Before I, became aware of, other information, started learning about, the truth behind many things, how money came to be, how the government works. When I actually, left school and actually did the research myself, that was kind of what I was getting my information from too, because that's where my parents got it from, right? And that's where their parents got it from. So changing people's awareness and expanding their information on this topic comes with a lot of cognitive dissonance, because you give them a different opinion, you give them a different answer, and they're like, but I've heard this for so long. This has been my, source of information for so long. So that's where the biggest challenge is. And yes, it's not just planting one seed, it's planting consistent seeds that we have here. And, the whole reason that we came for this call is because everybody's feeling the pressure. Everybody's sick of it, right? And a lot of people don't know where to channel that energy. And that's, where this whole thing sparked the reason for the call. Some people were feeling stuck, right? And it's understanding that, at the end of the day, it's observing what they're telling you and doing the opposite. Right? Like Kimberly said, if you'd taken your mask off from the beginning, we would not be here at this point, right? And then they wouldn't have imposed vaccinations, we wouldn't have been under all these regulations and so forth. But it's really just understanding, the basic stuff we know about our life, right? We know that we have the right to freedom to work. That's something that they're putting down on us. We know that we have the right to body sovereignty. We get to choose whether or not we want to do something. And, the vaccination is literally telling people that you cannot work, right? Thus the truck going to Ottawa and so forth. But it's just understanding fundamental health as well. I know, Kimberly, you spoke about this on your page. I know many other people spoke on their page and they got labeled conspiracy theorists for just talking about basic health, about masks, what's in vaccinations. That's like a whole other thing to talk about. But just basic things that the media was not telling you to, like go outside. They were telling you to stay in your home when we all know from when we were kids, you need to go outside, you need to get vitamin D, you need to get fresh air. But none of that was ever being shown on the media, right? And that's like going back to what the first thing that I said, the biggest challenge is that the media is the only source of information for a lot of people, and planting these seeds has been the biggest challenge for a lot of people like us who are showing people alternative information and so forth.
We have a question in the chat, and I just want to pose it because I think it would be a great question for all the moms on the call. Abdallah said, do you feel the youth have the power to alter perception for the masses as seen in our history? And just my opinion, I think, yes, the youth does have the power, but it's our duty as adults to show them the way. And I would love to hear from some of the moms. I know, Kimberly, you're a mom. Kat, we have some moms on the call. I would love to hear your opinion on, how you raise your children in a society like this and the belief systems and how you're kind of conveying this to them.
I can go first. I believe, and one of the reasons why I've been fighting as hard as what I have been is, if our youth will never, as far as I, in my opinion, will be able to revive freedom if freedom dies. How can they revive a concept that they will have no idea what it is? right? Like we are the last generations that will actually know what freedom is if we allow freedom to die. So they will never, ever, in my opinion, be able to revive it. So I look at it as it's on all of us as parents, you know, to take on this, you know, this war for our kids, this psychological war for our kids. You know, I talk to my kids don't wear masks anywhere, but they still have to wear them at school. And I'm still fighting my school board on that. I'm quite vocal there. And I don't care if the teachers or the school boards or the superintendents, what they think of me, because like I'm the parent and I say what's best for my kids, not them. I talk to my kids, you know, my kids have gotten in trouble at school for saying masks are stupid. And I basically just lead my kids by example. They don't see mommy or daddy wearing masks anywhere. You know, we take them with us. They've watched me stand my ground over the last 2 years at different places. They've been with me when I've been thrown out of places, and I've had to try to explain to them as best as I can to, you know, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, what has happened. And just let them know that, you know, what's happening is not right, but we have to stand up for what we believe in. And
I love that. I think that's like even a bigger picture of, you know, we're not just teaching our children to, you know, you don't have to wear a mask to keep your smile covered, but to stand up for everything that you believe in and to have a voice in whatever you think is right or wrong. And yes. I think a lot of us, a lot of the younger generations at least, have also like hid behind a computer screen for so long. And it's like, it's almost like we've been conditioned, and there's been so many things leading to this. And that's, again, another whole conversation, but it's like you said, standing up for what you believe in. And I love that. And I love that you're teaching your children that.
Yeah, basically just lead by example.
How bad is the mask? Question, how bad is the mask situation out where you are specifically?
I'm in Ontario. They're still mask mandated everywhere in all public spaces. Like I said, I don't wear them. All the school boards here still have them on all the kids, even though the CDC has said that the cloth masks are absolutely useless and that they don't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
When I've gone at 2 superintendents now, none of them will call me back. Because I've asked them, and that's what I mean too. Like, if just a side note, like none of them will call me back. Like they're all shaking, just talking to me, and I'm not even as smart and as well educated on COVID and like all the medical background as probably a lot of you are on this call. So if I could talk circles around these people, imagine if
pretty
10
good
parents,
to me.
Well, thank you, but like you know, I try my best. But you know, what if 10 parents went at those superintendents? What Absolutely. If 15 or 20 actually went at them? You know, it goes back to that, like they wouldn't be wearing them anymore. But yeah, we still do have masks in all public places. Some businesses enforce it. I got thrown out of 3 stores last week. And on the 4th store, I found a place that would take me. And now if I need that product from that store, well, now guess which store is only going to get my business, even when all the mandates are over.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And
that's so true.
I use my money as my power. Like some people want to stand and fight and argue, and I think that's amazing. And I've done that too. I'm just at a point in my journey with this where I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go and I actually say to people, I'll take my money elsewhere because the businesses need me as a client. I don't need them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's actually really scary because if you want to like stick up to the government, and I'm just as bad, trust me. I'm kind of a rebel. Like I'm a total rebel, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I'll put my mask on, and then I'm like, when they're not looking, I'll put it down. I'm one of those people, but I'm not like, I'm not going to wear it or anything like that. I wish I was like that. But the reason why was because like, you know, I'm I don't take the vax. Like I took 1 vax because I wanted to go see Jenna, and that was the only reason why, because I did my bestie. But I also realized a lot of my other friends were having a lot of issues with the vax. And that's what really concerned me. I was having like heart palpitations and stuff. So a lot of issues with it. And I was like, I don't want to take it. So, you know, I would love to be able to go to different restaurants. Obviously, I'd love to go to the theater. That's my favorite thing in the world to do. But I said, you know, I'm not going to do that. But with the whole mask situation, though, like I have a friend of mine and she was on the SkyTrain. So, she's pro, like she's just like you. She's like, I will not wear it. I don't think she's ever actually worn a mask anywhere. So I'm pretty, she's very admirable. But the situation about standing up for your rights is in this situation, she actually was taken public transit. You probably saw it on the news actually. So this would have been kind of around, maybe like around when COVID started. So maybe a year ago or so. And she was talked to by one of the police, the transit police, asking her, okay, you need to wear a mask. She's like, I here's my actual like card. It's a medical exemption card. This was when medical exemptions were actually okay. So
Mhm.
they basically, when she said, I'm sorry, I'm not wearing one, like I don't have one on me and I'm not wearing one because I have to go home for my kids. And they actually assaulted her, and she had to go to court over that. So since that happened, police actually have broken into her house. I know that sounds actually really far fetched, but they actually did.
No.
They broke into her house. They're trying to. I don't know what's going on with them, but it's like she's on surveillance. They actually have like people trying to take her children away because they believe that
Wow.
she's an unfit mom because she doesn't believe on wearing masks. Obviously, with her child involved, like the children, she won't let them wear masks. So this is what happens when you try to protect yourself from the government. So that's what's so scary. And I think that a lot of people are so afraid of standing up for their rights because this is the result is having social services trying to take away your children. And that's what's so scary about protecting yourself. It's like, am I going to get to work or am I going to get thrown in jail today? So that's the
Yeah,
biggest
and
problem.
that's why, like, when we see injustice being done, we all, whether it's being done to us or to somebody else, like when we see something that is wrong being done to something, like it's our duty. It's all of our duty. Like we have this society in both our countries where it's like, oh, don't get involved. Just pretend like it's not happening. Like every store I've ever gotten thrown out of, even with my like 2-year-old daughter on my hip, all these parents look down and around and they pretend like they don't see me. They know that I shouldn't be getting thrown out, but none of them say anything. And that's what I'm trying to get through to everybody when I talk to them is when you see something being done to somebody, whether they're being segregated or discriminated against or something wrong is being done to them. It's like, imagine if everybody got involved and said, no, you're not going to do that. Well, then all of a sudden the government or police or whoever, they lose their power because they realize that, okay, the people aren't going to stand for that.
I was really disappointed that there wasn't more people from Ottawa. Like as soon as that happened with all the convoys situation where all the police were coming, I wish that the entire Toronto came. I wish there was some like a massive movement and they could have just outnumbered the police. I think that they needed to really come together and say enough is enough. But there's people saying, oh, well, some people are for the mandates, which just doesn't make any sense. If only they realize what could happen from just like, let's take away this, let's take away that,
Yeah.
and then see what happens in the long run. They really can't see the long-term effects about what's going to happen if we allow this to keep happening. But it's sad that not enough people came forward, in my opinion. I think we need more. We need more people standing
The
up for our
protesters
rights
actually
than just
did
that.
outnumber the police. There were
Really?
thousands and thousands. Oh, absolutely. Like, I don't know what you guys have heard,
Wow.
but no, they outnumbered the police. Like there were thousands of protesters and there were thousands of trucks.
Wow.
You know, it used to get a lot more, of course, on the weekends because a lot more people would be able to go down. I mean, some people had jobs and obligations. I couldn't get to Ottawa. We had no one to take our kids. We didn't feel comfortable taking our kids. So that's why I chose to do the best I could and try to inspire people to take their mask off to non-compliance. Like just because they weren't on the ground in Ottawa, no matter where they were in the country, I didn't want people to feel helpless, you know, because you're not helpless. You have a say in what happens and what you do in your everyday life. Like you're not helpless. You have each and every single person on this call. You have more power than you'll ever know.
Absolutely. And I think it also comes back to the unity question that's being raised is like, where do we stand as a nation, as a planet? You know, this isn't something that it's more severe in certain places, but it's happening all over. Right? Like it's happening more so in New York than it is in Dallas. And it's happening more so in Canada than it is in the United States. And, you know, it's just a question of when are we going to take a stand, and how could we come together and really open each other's eyes and really see and let other people see that, again, we only have control over one thing, and that's how we react or respond to certain situations and circumstances. So you have full control over what goes on in your life, in your reality, in your environment. And if each and every one of us could just digest that concept, this would be a completely different world we'd be living in today. And I think it's really important that we dial in on having control over the way you respond to situations, and, you know, spreading that word and allowing people to become aware of the control that they do have over themselves. I don't think it's a question of you have control over, you know, because you don't have control over other people or the government, but we have control over what we do and what we put out there and what we believe. And I think that we just have to open up other people's minds as to, you know, how far are you going to let someone essentially abuse you and
Absolutely.
take advantage of you?
Yep. We are all in an abusive relationship with our government.
100%.
100%.
I would love to hear from Kat or Ariel, because I know Ariel's in Canada as well. Kat, if you wanted to touch on, I know you're a new mother, but, you know, I would love to also hear what you think, or how you think you're going to go about teaching your son about what's going on in the world and how to live a life that, you know, you speak about all the time.
I think it really just comes down to allowing him to think for himself and make conclusions by himself. Like as Kimberly was stating, like looking at the news is, you know, it makes you just feel like there's so many things going, like what good is there in the world? But it's really looking at both sides and forming your own conclusions. And ultimately, that's how it is, right? Most people are making the conclusion that this whole movement is anti-vaxxers, people who are anti-mask, who are racist, and yada yada yada, right? But they're just gathering one side, and it's really just, you know, as you're able to look at both sides and form your own conclusion, and just really be a critical thinker and a free thinker, right? Most people are thinking thoughts that are very controlled from, you know, from the government and so forth. So just allowing him to make his own conclusions and allowing him to have body sovereignty. That's where this whole really thing came from. And regardless of what your opinion is, you have the right to choose your own opinion. You know, I didn't vaccinate him. I did a home birth, so I didn't have to deal with the hospital. I didn't want to deal with anything, period. So, and I chose not to vaccinate him, but that's ultimately his choice when he becomes older, right? When he comes that age and so forth. So it's really just letting him make his decisions rather than just following, you know, an agenda. This is what you do. This is when you do it. This is how you do it. As you know, that's how I was kind of brought up. Before I got to school, I was already vaccinated before I even knew I was vaccinated, what a vaccination was. You know, that's how most of us were brought up, and having that awareness is allowing him to make his own decisions and so forth. But we do have to wrap it up. So if anybody else wants to say anything, Kimberly, if you want to say your final words before we conclude.
Just, if you guys are having trouble taking your mask off, and you look at me as somebody who, you know, is just this courageous person, like I'm just like you. I'm just like all of you. The first few months I wore my mask. And if I can help you guys who are still wearing one and having trouble taking it off, is the first time I didn't wear a mask, what I did is I called in one of my husband's prescriptions. So I knew it was going to be ready ahead of time. And I gave myself, I set the bar low. I gave myself a really quick trip. And I practiced ahead of time saying, no, I have an exemption. You probably don't even have to say that now. This was back when it was like really hard to do, right? When people were really on you. And I actually practiced that in the car before I went in, and my heart was pounding and I was sweating, but I knew it was like this quick trip. I just had to get the prescription and I had to leave. And then that was a win, right? I'd gotten a win. I'd done one thing without a mask on, and I kept doing these little trips like that. And gradually my trips got longer and longer. And now I'm the person that you guys see on my Instagram where I'm getting thrown out of places and I'm laughing and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And like, but that was built. I wasn't born this way. I didn't start this way. And if I can build that, then I know that each and every single one of you can build it too.
Thank you so much for being on our call. We are super grateful for your time and all of the work that you put in as an individual. It's really, really important. Just my last kind of piece, and then you guys can say whatever else you guys want to say is, again, we need a solution. And I think that if we all kind of stand up in our own way, whether it's even attending calls like this, right? Opening yourself up, becoming aware, that can make all the difference. And just understanding that you only can control you, and to have your own mindset, to have your own opinion. Don't go based off of what your mom thinks or your friend thinks. Sit with yourself and really dive deep and say, what is it that I believe in? Why do I believe in these things? And if I don't truly feel like the things that I've been taught to believe in resonate with me, what is it that I do believe in? Whether that's in agreement with what we're discussing tonight or not, just to have your own point of view and perception on things is really super important. So that's
100%.
kind of my take. And yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I've enjoyed this so much. Thank you.
We'd love to have you back someday.
Kimberly.
You guys let me know. I would love to be back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything they want to touch on before we go? All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating on this call and getting on the call. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, live on YouTube, sometimes Instagrams, and we have the links. You can ask one of us, get in touch. Definitely go and follow Miss Northeast on Instagram. Follow
you.
her. And everybody have a great rest of your night.
Thanks, guys.